Have you guys ever heard of Dietrich Fast? He's a pretty good player.
No.
I mean, he's been on the EPT and stuff. You've probably heard of him.
I mean, probably.
Now, his name is Fast, but he's going to play this hand pretty slow until he plays it really fast, so I don't really know what to believe. And neither does Ben Page. That's probably why he suggested it.
You know, in the TV show The Flash, Barry Allen...
Don't bring up any freaking
Barry Allen always
TV shows.
says, I have to go faster. I have to learn to be faster. I don't know why he feels that way, honestly. It goes pretty quickly anyway. But Dietrich Fast seems to go faster in this hand, my friend.
Yes, and Ben Page suggested it on Twitter. We, of course, two poker guys on Twitter. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet at us, include a YouTube link.
You know, ironically enough, fast means both to go quickly as well as to not eat. Little piece of trivia there for you.
Maybe that's because you die quickly if you do it.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm a linguist.
Speaking of dying quickly, we have to thank our sponsor, Nitrogen Sports Poker, who makes this thing happen, keeps the video going, keeps the lights on around here. At the end of every month, we have our famous Poker Guys tournament, which you can, be eligible to play in if you just click the link in the description of this video.
And the reason Jonathan mentioned Nitrogen and dying quickly is because of survivor pools.
That's
Jonathan.
right.
They're here. The NFL season is coming up, and Nitrogen is offering survivor pools. They're super fun. You get to pick one team to win each week in a big pool of players. You only get to pick each team once, so you got to be strategic and careful. At the end, one person wins a bunch of money. It's a lot of fun.
And there's free buy-ins all the way up to a Bitcoin buy-in, so whatever your speed, however much money you want to spend, including zero, you can do it. Get in there.
However Dietrich Fast you are.
Yes, indeed. Get in there, get you some survivor pool.
13th.
Another nice hand for Fast. Change the spelling.
Yeah, I was going to say. Passette, not Passat.
Oh, he likes to just call. Second pair. Just a jack as an overcard. Fast checks back. Well, 9 would be an interesting card.
Sure.
Give both players a straight. Obviously, Fast would have the nut straight.
Obviously, Passette happy to check his pair and got short draw. Fast happy to check king high and his open ended straight draw. Well, set on the river. Passette checks once more.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense now, would it, for Fast to bet represent a 9? Any 9 combinations would have been betting that turn.
10 seconds.
Well, he's going to do a Manigloser and take a stab at it, as he did with Paul Poir, who called. So let's see if Passette calls. I'm sure he will. 45,000.
Yeah. Coming out of raise.
160.
Trying to get max value with his set here. Doesn't think Fast. Check back a 9.
Very strong cut always.
Oh wow. Fast has re-raised the river. And this is Passette going for thin value, has opened himself up to get bluffed.
Always the problem.
These are your two tournament chip leaders.
God, this would be some call, wouldn't it?
Passette went for it. Wasn't happy just calling 45. He had Queen 9 of diamonds, he bet the flop. So it was some of the combos Queen 9s he would take out.
5.
He lays it down. Wow, what a move from Fast.
Dietrich Fast? That's how you go for it, Dietrich Fast. Should he have gone for it, though?
Well.
I mean, is this a good story? Now, we just saw an
No.
entire hand play out, and it felt like it happened in a flash because there was so much checking, and then all of a sudden, a flash flood occurred on the river of betting. I didn't work on that beforehand. I probably should have workshopped that.
Maybe.
Didn't really work. It's unfortunate. But let's talk about the checking before we talk about the betting, because Dietrich deciding to check on the flop might be standard, might not be. What do you think?
I think it's fine with king queen here to check back, where you've got overs, you got some backdoor stuff working for you. You could have the best hand, you can induce stuff. You can sometimes you can even call on certain turns and rivers if you decide you want a hero. Give yourself a chance to improve. The board isn't great for us. It's about range neutral, I would say. I think it's fine to check. I think it's fine to bet. What do you think?
I think both are fine as well. I think all it does is eliminates most flush draws from Dietrich's range.
Yes.
But we do see that on the turn, Dietrich does not bet his open-ender, which means maybe we can't necessarily remove flush draws from his range because this is a non-standard play for sure.
Yeah, now you got to believe, though, he would usually bet the flush draw at least on the turn.
Yeah.
But it's weird that he wouldn't have bet it on the flop. And as we see, he does not bet his overs and open-ender on the turn, which honestly is mind-boggling to me.
It's not actually,
Go
when
on.
you really think about it. I mean, we think about Passett's range, this board is pretty much all over everything. And
Yeah.
at this point, Passett's not going to fold a one-pair hand as played,
No.
right? Ever.
Right.
So he's got to have something like ace-4 offsuit or something like that that can find a fold that is a better hand than Dietrich's, that Dietrich can actually get to fold out. It's really rare that Dietrich's going to fold out a better hand on the turn.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he doesn't bet.
There's still some value in betting. One, we get to build a pot for sometimes when we make the nuts on the river or hit one of our overcards, which is going to scare Passett into check folding even when he has one pair. Also, there are other hands we can knock out which are worse than ours that still have equity against us. It's not the end of the world to just bet and win here. We can also get bluffed on the river if we don't improve and Passett bets. We're probably going to fold our king-queen high. That's the time was when we would win the pot versus losing the pot. Overall, I like a bet more than a check here, but you do make reasonable points that usually we're not going to get a bet through very often here when Passett checks twice.
It's a multi-street plan.
Yeah.
Speaking of multi-street, multiple streets of bets went in on one street, the river. And should they have? That's the question. Now, if it isn't clear, there's 4 to a straight on the board. A 9 makes a straight. So that is basically the whole focus of everybody on this river. Now, Passett checking the set of 8s is interesting. What do you think about that?
I think it is interesting. I think he may just be worried that if he bets, he's just not going to ever get called by anything he'd want to get called by.
Well, that doesn't really make sense based on what he does later.
Well, I agree, actually. But I think he's concerned that Fast is just going to be, folding all his ace highs at this point, folding even his small pairs, and maybe by checking we can sometimes induce at least. He just thinks the range is super weak here. It's got to be, right? Otherwise, we should be betting, hoping to get called by something.
Yeah.
Right? The board is polarizing enough that actually we could bet as Passett and maybe get called by ace high or some weak one pair hands sometimes.
Absolutely. We could be repping like the 2 undercards to the board thing and say like, you got to call me with some of your weird one pair hands that you checked all the way down.
I think it's okay though as Passett to check, especially if we think Fast is bluffy, which it looks like he is. So I think it's okay to check and give him a chance to like fire away a little bit. The question to me is not so much the check here.
No, it's fine.
It's more the raise. It seems weird to do, even with the set of 8s here, even when we think we're almost always good as Passett. It's so hard to come up with hands that are gonna, that Fast can really have, that can be strong enough to call. Like, forget straights, which we wouldn't want him to call with anyway. 2-pair hands don't really make much sense here.
No, he doesn't usually have those.
He has almost no 2-pair hands, right?
I mean, I think this is the worst play in the hand. This check raise is really bad in my mind. Now, we see what the result is, which is not what I would be thinking about as far as theoretically why it would be bad. It's more, what are we expecting to get called by? Well, certainly Fast is never folding a 9, so this doesn't work as a bluff, and we would never be planning on having this being a bluff. But as played, it went check, 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 check. I don't know, 6 or 7 more checks. I don't think Fast really ever shows up with a very strong 1-pair hand or a 2-pair hand.
I mean,
and distribution-wise, he's not going to have hands that he can call with.
There's a few combos of 7-8 out there, but we got 2 8s in our hand and there's an 8 on the board, so there aren't that many. There's like 3 combos total of 7-8, which is the only reasonable 2-pair hand that might play it this way, I think.
Yeah.
It's really hard to come up with stuff.
It is. I don't think we can get value from pretty much anything. And as we see, usually we're just going to fold out the king highs, and that's a result that is the same as far as chip EV as just calling, obviously, because just calling we get the 45K anyway. But instead of that happening, Dietrich Fast decides, you know what, buddy? Screw you.
My name's Dietrich Fast, and I have a queen in my hand, so get ready to eat some
Let's
chips,
talk about
buddy.
that queen in his hand. Why does that matter?
Well, it matters, of course, because it blocks the nuts. The nuts being, in this case, queen 9.
Right.
Now, I have a problem with this raise, although there are things I like about it too. But my initial problem with it is, even though we have a queen in our hand, and that may embolden Fast to raise here, and I think it does.
Blocking the nuts is good.
That's helpful. So there's less combos of queen 9 out there for Passett to have, and that's great. Passett could very reasonably have queen 9. Passett has more queen 9s than we do, I think, based on how this hand played out. Even though we, as Dietrich Fast, we know that we checked back an open-ender. It's not reasonable for Passett to think we did. So as Passett, the story doesn't really make sense. Right?
Now, I think that what Dietrich is thinking about is not necessarily the story he's telling,
Right.
because the story is kind of garbage, let's be honest. But I think what he's realizing is that Passett himself doesn't, I mean, we might say Passett has more queen nines. I don't know if that's true. Passett didn't bet the river. Would he not be worried about not getting a bet in on the river?
I mean, he does check raise the river, so
Yeah.
queen nine makes sense in that way, right?
It does make sense in that way, but it feels like up until this point, queen nine doesn't really make sense. He didn't bet the turn either.
Yeah, but
You know?
he could be check raising the turn sometimes.
He could be check
doing
raise the
stuff.
turn.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's less likely than a normal line for Passett to have queen nine, although he might be more likely than Fast to have queen nine.
That's what I think.
He still is very unlikely to have it.
Okay,
right?
that's fair.
Now, I think this is only, and we're going to talk about the story in a second, but I think this play only works if Fast genuinely believes that he can fold out some nines. If he can't fold out some nines, because what do you expect Passett to be check raising?
Right.
I mean,
No, that's right. It's
if
a
you can't
really
fold
good
out
point.
some nines, then I think it's a really bad play.
So the question is, number one, okay, first of all, the story is not strong enough, I think, to fold out nines, if we just base it on the story. But there's a second piece that's really vital here, and it's, oh my gosh, we went from very small pot to very big pot super fast, right?
We
In
did.
lightning time.
Dietrich Fast.
Yeah, if you will. So suddenly 500,000 chips are being bet, and instead of it being this little pot played between the chip leaders, suddenly it's, oh my gosh, this is maybe the pot of the tournament right now.
Yeah, all of a sudden it is. And what works for Dietrich here is that 3-bet bluffs on the river are so incredibly rare.
Yeah.
We racked our brains and we couldn't think of another time that there was a 3-bet bluff on the river that we did a breakdown on. And breakdowns are about extraordinary hands.
Yes.
And that's an extraordinary play. So the rarity of the play alone might be enough to get it through.
Yeah, like you sit back and, I mean, we're representing, as Dietrich Fast, only the nuts here.
Yeah.
And like Dietrich Fast is never just raising a 9,
No,
ever in a million
no.
years, ever, right? So he's just calling with a 9. So we're repping only the nuts, and I mean, because it looks like Passett can have a 9 so much of the time when he check raises, it just feels like, well, he just has to have it,
It's
doesn't
a
he?
super strong looking play and that works for him. However, he didn't bet the turn. Now, we know Fast didn't bet an actual open-ender on the
Yeah.
turn. So we know in Fast's mind, he knows that sometimes he would check queen nine on the turn, but he has to know that Passett knows that as well for this to be a good story. Now, maybe he does. Maybe these guys play a home game together and they know everything about each other.
Maybe.
It's possible. Otherwise, the story is garbage. However, the bigger pile of garbage is the check raise with the set of eights because I don't see any benefit to it.
I mean, ultimately, what Fast is hoping for, I think, is that the times that Passett isn't bluffing, and he has a 9, or in this case, a set of 8s, which is not the same as a 9, but not that different either, because we don't believe Fast is ever really going to 3-bet a 9 alone here, right? So it really plays the same, the set of 8s does, is that Passett would think to himself, it's just not worth it. And that's what Fast needs Passett to think to be able to fold a 9 here, which is clearly what he's targeting, right?
He has to be targeting at least some nines, some random like one pair turned into a bluff hands maybe that he's like, well, you can't call with those obviously, but
Yeah.
it works in the end. I think just because of the rarity of the play and how powerful it is. And look at that, he gets to win a big pot. Now, he doesn't go on to win the tournament. He doesn't even go on to cash in the tournament, but Passett does.
Well, so that'll tell you something.
Yeah, that'll teach you a lesson.
Yeah, yeah.
Dietrich.
Yeah. Dietrich. That's what his mama used to say when he would be mischievous, just like in this hand.
He's very mischievous.
We really question a lot of these plays, especially on the river. Even the turn, we think is like, why isn't he betting the turn? It seems weird to us. What do you guys think, though? Do you think that Dietrich played this really well? Do you think the fact that the 3-bet bluff is in play sort of supersedes all these other things like the story? Do you think the fact he's holding a queen is enough of a blocker? I mean, it's a blocker. Is it enough ultimately to make this play as well? Do you like the check raise by Passett on the river? Tell us what you think in the comments. We look forward to seeing what you have to say.
I want to hear a strong defense of the check raise on the river. I would like to hear that because that's something that I cannot defend in my mind.
I can come up with ways that it's good. But we'll see if the people can. You know, if
don't
Fast is known for making big hero calls when you polarize yourself, it's reasonable.
Yeah, no, I disagree. It's bad. Anyway, that was a monster bluff, and we did a while ago a hand with Neil Farrell making a monster bluff. It was a super cool hand. It probably shouldn't have worked either.
No.
But you should click up here to check it out.
It's unbelievable that it
Yeah.
works. Totally worth checking out on the EPT. Now, if you want to know how he came to all these thoughts about Passett, about Fast, about the hand, you got to check out our podcast, The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys. That's where we spend a good 50 minutes just talking about this one hand and all the decisions going down on all the branches of the decision tree, checking things out, checking them twice like Santa Claus. You know how it is, Grant.
Why not? Yeah, we're definitely like
sure.
Santa Claus.
We're on your favorite podcast app, including Apple Podcasts.
Just
Stitcher.
guessed on the 50 minutes, by the way. He's just hoping it's somewhere around
Something like
50
that.
minutes, somewhere between
Nobody
35
cares.
and an hour. It might be
Nobody
one
cares.
of those. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel.